saw the news yesterday that Trae Young is expected to be back practicing with the team this week. First off, probably goes without saying, but what does that bring to this team to get him back?
Yeah, I think I've been consistent since we lost him. And Trae's a big part of what we do, and obviously having him return to play, I know he's excited, and his teammates and everybody are looking forward to having him back.
And then Jalen Johnson, 3 consecutive triple-doubles. I know you've been asked about his play a lot as well, but if you could pinpoint 1 or 2 things that you think that Jalen has done in the last month or so that has really elevated his game on the court, what would those things be?
Yeah, I think, being ready to take his catch and shoot 3 has been really important. It just sets up all the other parts of his game. And then, when whether it's in transition or in the half court, when he makes quick decisions and he can get into the paint, he's been able to not just score when he's deep in the paint, but also to find teammates and create offense for others too.
Coach, just talk about what's going to take tonight defensively with a team like Philadelphia, who's so quick and also physical as well.
Yeah, I think you hit it. We've got a lot of guys that are capable of driving the ball and getting in the paint, and they do that, a number of ways, whether it's in transition or just, attacking you off the dribble in closeouts, pick and roll, dribble handoffs, so we have to be really not just disciplined on the ball, but have to be shifted and ready to help and shrink the floor to make it harder for them to do that.
Hey Coach, the Hawks right now are third in percentage of possession with the ball outside of the floor. That's a slight deviation from what your typical philosophy has been, whether it's in Utah or previous seasons coaching with the Hawks. And so I'm curious, is that something that you feel like you're emphasizing differently this year, or is that
I'm confused. So we're third in
percentage of possession with all 5 starters.
So who are all 5 starters?
Well, so it's determined by the game starters, it's not the overall.
Okay,
Right.
Well that's really hard to. Go ahead and finish the question. I'll see if I can answer it.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. But
yeah.
I'm curious because it doesn't seem like that's been something you've consistently done throughout your coaching career. You typically are basically in matching lineups, not always having the majority of the starters on the floor at the same time. So I'm curious, for this particular season, do you sort of contribute that more so to the line of attrition, or is it more of a shift in your philosophy?
It has nothing to do with anything other than trying to find the best combinations game to game to, win games. Because we've had injuries and certain guys that are starters in and out of the game, our starting lineups varied some, but more importantly than that, I think, that creates changes in your rotation. So I'd have to look at it is to answer your question, but I think we go into every game, with kind of an expected rotation, and really all that is just having a plan that you usually diverge from, but you got to start somewhere. And I think it's probably a credit as much as anything to a player like Dyson and their impact on the game. But with Trae out, Dyson moving to the point guard, a lot of those things kind of come into play, depending on, regardless of who's starting on a given game. Usually you try to, starting sometimes involves matchups too. So a lot of variables going on there.
Quick, I wanted to ask you about Nikhil. Good news that he's back tonight. You have a unique perspective on watching this young man's growth and maturity in the NBA. He's having an unbelievable season at both ends of the floor. Just what you've seen and what he contributes on and off the court.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head, Bob. He's having an unbelievable season on both ends of the floor, and to this extent that we can kind of measure a player's impact by statistics offensively. It's harder to capture that defensively, but he's so consistent on that end of the floor with his discipline and his effort, and I think he's become even more consistent on the offensive end, really with that same mindset that when he's open, he's taking his catch and shoot 3. I think at the beginning of the year, a lot of times he found himself deep in the paint and was taking some contested shots. I think we've seen his growth in that regard as well, being more in control and being able to still finish, but also, as we say, having his eyes out and finding other people. So, the things that we've asked Nikhil to do are a little more, maybe, or a little different than he has in the past few years. I think that's one of the reasons that, he identified, this team and this place is a good match for him. And you've seen him get better at those things. So I won't say it's surprising, but that growth is happening quickly.
Hey, Coach.
Yep.
Before the start of the season, at this current point right now, are the Hawks playing at a level that you would have anticipated or that you would like to have to be playing at?
I guess that gets to expectations. I think some of the things that happened in the offseason for us were fairly well publicized, and as a result, I think a lot of those prognostications were probably a little bit bold in my mind. Having said that, there are some other teams in the East that got better, and I think where you are on that continuum, is really irrelevant. It's where you are at the end. I look back on our first game. I thought we were stuck, back in the summer, as opposed to the reality of the grind of the regular season. And I think we've done a good job of embracing that and continuing to grind and get better. It's hard for me to measure that, because we have had some key guys out. So as far as this group and what they're doing, I'm really I'm proud of how we've competed and shared the ball and really given effort on the defensive end. And I think we have gotten better, and hopefully we'll continue to do that. So where that lines up is always tough with schedule and what's going on with other teams and, if they're at full strength. And so it's hard to predict right now. But just speaking of our guys, I haven't wanted to put a ceiling on them, but I do think we've gotten better since the start of the year. Where that takes us, I don't know yet.
Hey, Coach, over here. Right here, in the back.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry. News just a little bit ago that Brazingis will miss the next 2 weeks with an illness. It said that he'll undergo further evaluations. Can you shed any details on that?
No, I know you guys respect this and all those types of issues and comments and observations. I just defer to our health performance staff. Okay?